Okay, so if you watched the last video, I just mentioned
Yeah,
that I had to. I had
YouTube
to.
gives us 15 minutes
Well,
extra.
it thinks it's 10 minutes for my thing, so
Okay.
I'll leave it at 10 minutes. Anyways, I just sort of answered his last question. Go ahead and reset the question so I can pretend I'm to do it again.
Okay. Um, a lot of critics of the free market have indicated their fears that it would turn into fascism when unregulated as corporate and state powers merge. Gerald Celente defines that as fascism, citing Benito Mussolini's own words. With that in mind, what what would a truly free market do to make sure that those powers would not be able to merge?
Well, a truly free market kind of negates having some kind of arbitrary government thing, the way we have currently defined government in the first place.
Right.
Uh, Now, it doesn't mean necessarily that you wouldn't. It also points to the fact that you'd be voluntarily paying for a certain form of government, and people wanting to make sure that their rights are defended are more like, well, hold on a second, as I tried to figure out what the hell I was going to say there. As you mentioned your question there, I remembered exactly how I was going to start on it, and of course, I'm failing again, but
It's okay.
just
Take your
proves I'm
time.
human, people.
Take your
Now,
time.
the fact of the matter is that in a truly free market system, you wouldn't have a government as we define it today. You may have governing bodies, mind you, right? And that could be anything like insurance companies or well, insurance companies is actually the only one that comes to mind right ahead, but there would be other ones. Uh, and The fact of the matter remains that they would have to come to the point where these governing bodies would have to be able to interwork with each other, and they do. Insurance companies work with each other a lot, and some people that's that way. If I crash my car tomorrow against someone who has insurance from Geico, I have insurance from Progressive, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're still able to do business together, basically, right?
Right.
In that sense, in a most critical sense there. And it overlooks the fact that in other market areas, you see similar things. We now have cell phones which reminds me, I didn't turn mine off, so I don't get many calls anyway, so there's no big deal there. But the fact of the matter remains, in the case of cell phones, right, they figured out that it would be a cheaper cost essentially to be able to piggyback off each other's towers instead of constructing their own towers up there. And this increases the much big coverage. So we'll probably see something like that. And that's about the only thing I can really say about that because the free market really is something you can't guess. You can't really positively predict. So,
Okay. Um, Another question I have is another argument that people make in defense of regulating the market is the idea that human beings are not don't act responsibly under the ideas of the free market and would take more in an every man for themselves sense. With that in mind, um, what are the chances in a totally free market system that those who irresponsibly mismanage the market would pay for their mistakes in totally destroying the market?
well, you
Like
can't
for
just well,
like for example,
outside the use of government, you can't really do anything to destroy the market, and the government is really failing at that too.
okay,
The fact that there's certain amounts of facts here is you can't trust people to do things on their own, to regulate themselves, and to be trustworthy people and uphold to their principles in a sense. And you really don't want a government either, because who staffs the government?
people,
Yeah, people make up the government. They make up the arbitrary laws. They make up all these kind of things here. So you're going to tell me that the people in government can somehow regulate themselves, but the people who are not in government can't. And because of that, absolute free market, you find people who would be trying to kill each other for a biscuit to you know be a little here and there. Well, it's not really how it works out, and there are going to be situations where people will overdo things, right? Once again, it's hard to predict how the market's going to turn. That's why I can't give you an absolute prediction how these things will look, right? I can give you what I think is likely to happen, and I can tell you what I think I'd like to happen, but unfortunately, I can't give you an absolute picture. What I can tell you is that in an absolutely free market, if you overinvest in something that people don't want, you go out of business. You may get bailed out by, say, your friends or someone else, but there's no one who's going to guarantee that bailout either. So you're in a situation where you're going to have to provide services to people to make sure you have any kind of positive money growth at all, right? And if you don't serve people the way they want to be served, they're not going to buy your stuff.
Okay.
Well, there's the possibility that you are simply the best provider still, and you'll make money. But then you have to worry about the fact that there's new up and comers who will find ways to make better service.
Switching gears for a moment.
Sure. And we're at 6 minutes in the second video, so.
Okay. What would you see? What would you say to those who are concerned about this would be a positive difference from what they're currently experiencing now?
That is a very general question. Could you rephrase that in a way I can understand a little better?
Sure. What would be positive aspects that would bring positive differences from what people are experiencing now with economics?
Okay, well, there's the fact that, say, the dollar goes down. You could trade, you could ask for a different form of payment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true you can do that nowadays, too, to a certain extent, right? But let's say, let's just using the fiat currencies of the world today, right?
Right.
Let's say the dollar's going down, but the Canadian dollar is doing better, right?
Right.
You could ask to be paid only in Canadian dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy you're trying to get paid from really wants your business. He'll pay you in Canadian dollars. And and it's more likely to have the Chinese yuan. Absolutely honest with you here nowadays, but that was just an example, an arbitrary example, the easiest one I can get to. And the fact of the matter remains is that in a free market, you'd be a number of different currencies coming up. There's certain currencies out there now, some of which no longer really exist, and some that are just starting up. Liberty Dollar was a alternative currency system based by weighted metals, essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, because of the fact that they were getting really popular in many cases, and some small minor things like people not really liking the fact that some people wouldn't take their money, they were raided by the Fed essentially, or their handlers or whoever they sent to do it to ensure their monopoly. There is an up and coming group now who is also doing by a weighted metal called Shire Silver, which I'm going to be investing a little into as soon as I can get stretch around the capital myself. They're in gram form stuff, so you'd be better off not only because you could ask what you want in payment. You'd be better off because you wouldn't be forced to pay anyone you weren't willing to pay for certain services. So we're talking you'd have zero taxation, so you'd have more of that money to go around to do whatever you want with it. And you'd have people in the market to provide defense forms or whatever you want to provide, who'd be competing on the market and be able to provide things cheaper or not. The way things are now, the poor are subsidized by the rich in their defense, which is not to say that's not a bad situation. Necessarily is that it's obvious that the poor aren't the ones being defended.
Okay.
The government's being defended, actually. The rich are not even being defended in many cases. And I'm going to stop this because we're at 9.5 minutes now, too, and we'll start again with the next question.
Okay.